Book 9, Part 1. Adam and the angels have been talking about the fall of the angels, and they've been sitting and chit-chatting all afternoon, and now that story is ended. So we begin at the end of the story of the fall of the angels and the war in heaven. No more of talk where God or angel guest with man, as with his friend, familiar used to sit indulgent, and with him partake rural repast, permitting him the while venial discourse unblamed. I now must change these notes to tragic. Foul distrust and breach disloyal on the part of man, revolt and disobedience. On the part of heaven, now alienated, distance and distaste, anger and just rebuke, and judgment given that brought into this world a world of woe, sin and o'ershadow death, and misery, death's harbinger. Sad task, yet argument not less but more heroic than the wrath of stern Achilles, on his foe pursued, thrice fugitive about Troy wall. Or rage of Turnus for Lavinia disespoused, or Neptune's ire, or Juno's that so long perplexed the Greek, and Cytherea's son, if answerable style I can obtain of my celestial patroness, that would be the Holy Spirit, who deigns her nightly visitation unimplored, and dictates to me slumbering, or inspires easy my unpremeditated verse, since first this subject for heroic song pleased me long choosing, and beginning late, not sedulous by nature to indite wars, hitherto the only argument heroic deemed chief mastery to dissect with long and tedious havoc, fabled knights and battles feigned, the better fortitude of patience and heroic martyrdom unsung, or to describe races and games, or tilting furniture, emblazoned shields, impresses quaint, caparisons and steeds, bases and tinsel trappings, gorgeous knights at joust and tournament. Then marshalled feast, served up in the hall with sewers and seneschals, the skill of artifice or office mean, not that which justly gives heroic name to person or to poem. Me, of these not skilled, nor studious, higher argument remains, sufficient of itself to raise that name, unless an age too late, or cold climate, or years damp my intended wing depressed, and much they may, if all be mine, not hers who brings it nightly to my ear. So he compares the muse, which is the Holy Spirit, and how the muse comes to his ear each night in dreams. And of course, this should make you think about how Eve's dreams come from Satan as he whispers in her ear. The sun was sunk, and after him the star of Hesperus, whose office is to bring twilight upon the earth, short arbiter twixt day and night. And now from end to end night's hemisphere had veiled the horizon round, when Satan, who late fled before the threats of Gabriel out of Eden, now improved in meditated fraud and malice, bent on man's destruction, maugre what might hap of heavier on himself, fearless returned. By night he fled, and at midnight returned. From compassing the earth, cautious of day, since Uriel, reach into the sun, descried his entrance, and forewarned the cherubim that kept their watch. Thence, full of anguish driven, the space of 7 continued nights he rode with darkness, thrice the equinoctial line he circled, 4 times crossed the car of night from pole to pole, traversing each color. On the 8th returned, and on the coast, averse from entrance or cherubic watch, by stealth found unsuspected way. There was a place, now not, though sin, not time, first wrought the change, where Tigris at the foot of paradise into a gulf shot underground, till part rose up a fountain by the tree of life. In with the river sunk, and with it rose Satan, involved in rising mist, then sought where to lie hid. So he gets into the garden by going under the water that goes underneath the ground and spouts up as a fountain by the tree of life. Then he comes up there in the fountain as a mist, and now he's searching for a hiding place. Sea he had searched, and land from Eden over Pontus and the pool Maeotis, up beyond the river Orb, down as far as Antarctic, and in length west from Morontes to the ocean barred at Darien, thence to the land where flows Ganges and Indus. Thus the orb he roamed with narrow search, and with inspection deep considered every creature, which of all most opportune might serve his wiles, and found the serpent, subtlest beast of all, the field. Him after long debate, irresolute of thoughts revolved, his final sentence chose, fit vessel, fittest imp of fraud, in whom to enter, and his dark suggestions hid from sharpest sight. For in the wily snake, whatever slights, none would suspicious mark, as from his wit and native subtlety proceeding, which in other beasts observed, doubt might beget of diabolic power, active within beyond the sense of brute. Thus he resolved, but first, from inward grief, his bursting passion into plaints thus poured. So before he inhabits the snake, he begins this speech. O earth, how like to heaven, if not preferred, more justly, seat worthier of gods, as built with second thoughts, reforming what was old. So now think about Eve and how she's the second built also. For what god, after better, worse would build? Terrestrial heaven, danced round by other heavens that shine, yet bear their bright officious lamps light above light for thee alone, as seems in thee concentrating all their precious beams of sacred influence. As God in heaven is center, yet extends to all, so thou, centering, receivest from all those orbs. In thee, not in themselves, all their known virtue appears, productive in herb, plant, and nobler birth of creatures animate with gradual life of growth, sense, reason, all summed up in man. With what delight could I have walked thee round, if I could joy in aught? Sweet interchange of hill and valley, rivers, woods, and plains, now land, now sea, and shores with forest crowned, rocks, dens and caves, but I in none of these find place or refuge. And the more I see pleasures about me, so much more I feel torment within me, as from the hateful siege of contraries. All good to me becomes bane, and in heaven much worse would be my state. But neither here seek I, nor in heaven to dwell, unless by mastering heaven supreme, nor hope to be myself less miserable by what I seek, but others to make such as I, though thereby worse to me redound. For only in destroying I find ease to my relentless thoughts, and him destroyed, or one to what way may work his utter loss. For whom all this was made, all this will soon follow, as to him linked in weal or woe. In woe, then, that destruction wide may range, to me shall be the glory sole among the infernal powers, in one day to have marred what he almighty styled 6 nights and days continued making, and who knows how long before had been contriving, though perhaps not longer than since I, in one night, freed from servitude inglorious, well nigh half the angelic name, and thinner left the throng of his adorers. He, to be avenged, and to repair his numbers thus impaired, whether such virtues spent of old now failed more angels to create, if they, at least, are his created, or despite us more determined to advance into our room a creature formed of earth, and him endow exalted from so base original with heavenly spoils, our spoils? What he decreed he effected, man he made, and for him built magnificent this world, and earth his seat, him Lord pronounced, and in dignity subjected to his service angel wings, and flaming ministers to watch and tend their earthly charge. Of these the vigilance I dread, and to elude, thus wrapped in mist of midnight vapor, glide obscure, and pry in every bush and brake, where hap may find the serpent sleeping, in whose mazy folds to hide me and the dark intent I bring. O foul descent, that I who erst contented with gods to sit the highest, am now constrained into a beast, and mixed with bestial slime, this essence to incarnate and imbrute, that to the height of deity aspired. But what will not ambition and revenge descend to? Who aspires must down as low as high he soared, obnoxious first or last to basest things. Revenge, at first, though sweet, bitter ere long back on itself recoils. Let it be, I reck not, so it light well aimed, since higher I fall short on him who next provokes my envy, this new favorite of heaven, this man of clay, son of despite, whom us the more to spite his maker raised from dust. Spite, then, with spite is best repaid. So saying, through each thicket dank and dry, like a black mist low creeping, he held on his midnight search, where soonest he might find the serpent. Him, fast sleeping, soon he found in labyrinth of many a round, self-rolled his head the midst, well stored with subtle wiles. Not yet in horrid shade or dismal den, nor nocent yet, but on the grassy herb, fearless, unfeared, he slept. In at his mouth the devil entered, and his brutal sense in heart or head possessing soon inspired with act intelligential intelligence. But his sleep disturbed not, waiting close the approach of morn.